The red Folgers canister and the blue Maxwell House can sit 2 feet apart on almost every grocery store shelf in this country, chosen more often by smell than by anything printed on the label. 4 of these coffee brands will tell you plainly what is in the bag. The 5th one is still being tested by outside labs that cannot agree on one single number for what is inside it. I read every word on the label. Here is what I noticed before I even opened a can. One of these 4 coffees has had its own advertised strength measured, disputed, and measured again by 3 separate laboratories, and the results still do not match each other. And before this ends, I am going to tell you which quiet little canister on this exact shelf, not the loud one, not the famous one, is the one I would actually put in my own pantry. Which one of these 4 do you reach for most without even thinking about it? Tell me in the comments before you watch the rest of this, because I want to see how many of you already own the one I am about to take apart first. Coffee is the one grocery item most households buy on autopilot. Nobody stands in that aisle reading ingredient lists the way they do with cereal or bread. They grab the can that smells like their mother's kitchen and move on. That habit is exactly why this category rewards a name more than it rewards what is actually inside the bag. Most mainstream ground coffee, it turns out, really is just roasted coffee beans and nothing else. No fillers, no additives, no hidden preservatives. So if there is a difference between these 4, it is not going to be some scary chemical on the ingredient list. It is going to be in the beans themselves. Which kind, in what ratio, and what that ratio is quietly buying you or costing you. I grew up believing that if the label was short, the food was honest. My mother judged a jar the same way she judged a neighbour, by what it actually contained, not by what it said about itself. She kept one tin refilled on the counter her whole life, filled with whatever was cheapest that month, and she never once looked at what the can promised on the front. She looked at what was left sitting in the bottom of the cup once it went cold. I learned to judge food before I learned to judge anything else. That part of me never left, and it is the only reason I ever thought to turn these cans around in the first place. Folgers Classic Roast is the one most of you probably have in your cabinet right now, so we start there. This is what the ingredient list shows. 100% coffee, no additives, no preservatives. That part is genuinely clean, and I will not pretend otherwise. But Folgers Classic Roast is not made from arabica beans alone. It is a blend of arabica and robusta beans, with the arabica used specifically to soften the harsher, more bitter edge that robusta brings on its own. Robusta is the cheaper bean to grow. It tolerates more climates, produces more caffeine, and tastes rougher on its own, which is exactly why it gets blended in rather than sold by itself. The plain language conclusion is simple. Part of what you are drinking in that red can exists to keep costs down, not to make the cup taste better on its own merits. Read that again. The arabica is not there because Folgers loves arabica. It is there to cover for the robusta. My verdict is this. Folgers Classic Roast is a workable, honestly labelled everyday coffee, but it is a budget blend wearing a very confident, very recognisable red can. That is the whole label, and that is the whole story. Now here is where I have to be honest about myself. I bought that exact red can for years before I understood what blend actually meant on a coffee bag. Nobody ever tells you that word is doing work. It took me turning the can around in my own kitchen more than once before I stopped assuming a full flavour meant full arabica. Do you check what blend means on your own can? Or do you just trust the colour of the packaging the way I used to? Maxwell House Original Roast tells almost the opposite story, and that surprised me the first time I looked. Several of Maxwell House's core products, the plain Original Roast canister among them, are made from 100% arabica beans, with the company having moved away from robusta in its main blend years ago. This is what the ingredient list shows on the standard canister: 100% arabica, roasted, ground, nothing else added. That is a genuinely better bean composition than the coffee sitting right next to it on the same shelf. Now, I want to be fair about something, because a fair fight earns more trust than a one-sided one. That all arabica claim is a real point in Maxwell House's favour, and it deserves to be said plainly rather than buried under everything else I am about to tell you. But turn the can one more time, because Maxwell House also sells an original roast, labelled with added antioxidants, reinforced, according to the company's own product description, with vitamin C and vitamin E mixed into the grounds. Read that again. Coffee on its own already contains natural antioxidant compounds from the bean itself. Adding vitamin C and vitamin E into ground coffee is not covering up a bad bean. It is dressing up a can that was already fine, so it can be sold as something more than what it actually is. My verdict on the plain Original Roast: solid, honestly composed, arabica-forward coffee. My verdict on the antioxidant version sitting one shelf tag over. The same coffee, wearing a health claim it did not need, aimed at a shopper who reads the front of the can and never turns it over. Which one is actually in your pantry right now? The plain one, or the one with the added vitamins on the label? Dunkin Original Blend is the one I expected the least from, honestly, given how much of that brand's identity is built on the shop experience rather than the grocery aisle. This is what the ingredient list shows: 100% premium arabica coffee beans, roasted and ground, with nothing else listed. No blend language to untangle. No robusta softened by arabica. No vitamins added for a headline. That is a short, clean label from a brand most people associate with the drive-through window rather than the coffee aisle. The plain language conclusion here is straightforward. The bag matches the shop cup in bean composition, at least on paper, and there is no quiet cost-cutting move hiding in the ingredient line. My verdict? Dunkin Original Blend is the most straightforwardly composed canister of the 4 sitting on this shelf. And it earns that with a label, not with a marketing story. I did not expect to say that about a brand named after a chain of donut shops. Did that surprise you as much as it surprised me? Or did you already know Dunkin bagged coffee matched the shop blend? And then there is Death Wish Coffee, the loudest can on this entire list, and the one I have been circling this whole video. This is what the ingredient list shows: arabica and robusta beans, both certified USDA organic and certified fair trade. That certification is real, and it costs the company something to maintain, so I want to say plainly that this is a genuine point in its favour before I say anything else. Now, I want to be fair about something. Organic and fair trade certification on a mass-market coffee bag is not nothing, and plenty of coffee on this exact shelf cannot say the same thing. But the caffeine claim is where this can get complicated, and it is the number I promised you at the start of this video. Death Wish markets itself around being the strongest coffee available, built on a robusta-heavy blend and an internal caffeine figure the company has tested and retested over the years. Independent testing has not landed on one consistent answer. One food chemistry lab measured the brewed coffee at roughly 200 milligrams of caffeine per 100 millilitres in an early round of testing. A separate laboratory testing later measured meaningfully less. A widely cited consumer testing organisation measured the brewed coffee at closer to 59 milligrams of caffeine per fluid ounce, which, brewed into a full cup, still lands well above an ordinary cup of coffee, but is also a different number entirely from some of the figures the brand itself has circulated. The plain language conclusion is this: the exact strength of this coffee is not a settled fact. It shifts depending on which lab tested it, and possibly on which batch was tested. That is not an accusation that anyone is lying to you. It is simply what happens when a company builds its entire identity around one number, and that number keeps moving every time somebody outside the company checks it. My verdict? Death Wish is a real, certified, organic and fair trade coffee. And if you want a robusta forward blend with a heavier caffeine load than average, it will deliver that. But a meaningful part of what you are paying for is the story around the number on the bag, not a number that has ever fully held still. Do you drink your coffee for the flavour, or are you one of the ones chasing the biggest number on the bag? Tell me honestly, because I used to be exactly that person before I started reading labels instead of marketing copy. If you have made it this far, you already know I am not here to sell you anything, and I am not here to tell you what to think about your own kitchen. I am the one who reads the can before she trusts the smell coming out of it. And if that is useful to you, that is the only reason to keep watching anything I make. I am not asking you to agree with me. I am asking you to turn the can around before you decide I am wrong. Before I get to what I would actually buy, I want to be honest about the limits of everything I just told you. Availability changes by region. A can sold in one part of the country is not always sitting on a shelf 3 states over. And some of these products come in more than one line under the same brand name, which is exactly how Maxwell House ends up with both a plain arabica canister and a vitamin-added one sitting a shelf tag apart. Ingredient lists change over time too. A company can quietly adjust a blend ratio or add something to a formula between one printing run and the next, and the only way to know for certain is to check the can currently sitting in your own kitchen, rather than trusting what I read months ago. So take everything I have said as a starting point for your own label, not a permanent verdict on a can you have not looked at yet. Now, the part I promised you. If I were filling my own pantry from this exact lineup, here is where I would actually spend money. Dunkin Original Blend earns a place first, and it earns it plainly. 100% arabica, nothing added, nothing to untangle on the label. What makes it different from the others on this list is how little there is to explain. There is no blend ratio to defend, no vitamin addition to question, no caffeine number under dispute. It is a short label that says exactly what it is. And for a shopper who wants a straightforward cup without reading 3 sentences of fine print, that plainness is worth something on its own. Maxwell House Original Roast. The plain canister, not the antioxidant version, earns a place next. 100% arabica beans, roasted simply, with nothing added to make the label louder than the coffee inside it. If Folgers is the budget blend leaning on a familiar can, Maxwell House's plain roast is the quieter option sitting one shelf over that actually gives you the better bean for a similar price. Check which version you are grabbing because the plain one and the vitamin-added one are not interchangeable choices, even though they share the same name on the front. Folgers Colombian, which is a different product from the standard red can classic roast, is worth naming here too. According to Folgers' own product description, this line is made from arabica beans specifically grown in Colombia rather than the arabica robusta blend used in the everyday classic roast can. If you are loyal to the Folgers name out of habit, this is the version within that same brand that actually gives you a cleaner bean composition than the can most people are already buying without a second thought. Those three earn a spot in my own kitchen, not because any one of them is flawless, but because each one tells you plainly, on its own label, exactly what it is giving you. Every can on a grocery shelf is trying to sell you a feeling before it sells you a bean. The label underneath that feeling is the only part of the package that cannot lie to you outright, because it is the one part regulators actually hold a company accountable for. A can can promise you mornings, memories, and a version of yourself that has everything figured out, that it cannot rewrite what is printed in that small type on the back without answering for it. Read it before you trust the can, the colour, or the story printed around it. That habit will tell you more about your coffee than any commercial ever will, and it will serve you in every aisle of that store, not just this one. Turn over the one can from this list that is already sitting in your own kitchen right now, and tell me in the comments exactly what the ingredient line says. Blend, 100% arabica, or something you did not expect to find. I want to know which one of you is holding the surprise. I told you at the start that one of these 4 cans had a caffeine number that could not sit still across 3 different labs, and now you know it is Death Wish. Organic, fair trade, and genuinely strong, but built around a figure that keeps shifting depending on who is testing it. I told you I would name the quiet one worth actually buying, and it is Dunkin Original Blend, with Maxwell House's plain original roast and Folgers Colombian close behind it. I haven't bought a jar of the antioxidant-added coffee since I first turned that can around, and I don't plan to. Read your own label before you trust mine.